Good morning, everybody. Papa Todd Takes. I am Papa Todd, and let's talk about a little bit of workplace safety today. So, what I was going to do, I've been doing this normal breakdown of the top violations cited by OSHA in the previous week. Well, for 2 weeks, they've been pretty silent. Doesn't mean stuff's not going on. They're always going out and doing investigation. Just nothing has been officially wrapped up or proposed penalties brought out yet, right? So there's always stuff ongoing. It's just been pretty quiet as far as what they're addressing. The most recent one is still the two young individuals during shutdown operation died of exposure, tragic incident, and of course, so I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do today, and so I've been talking a while about coming up with a whole program based on this, and so I think if we're going to do this, let's address this to somebody who maybe you have a small shop, small outfit, or you're just getting started, you don't have a hired safety professional, you're responsible for OSHA compliance at your shop. What do you do? Where do you start? Because it just seems overwhelming, and it can be overwhelming. There's a ton of stuff. So what I thought I'd do is maybe help you out, go down. What are the top 10 things that OSHA cites when they come on sites? What are the big findings that they're finding everywhere, that there's so many things pile up that they're getting people for them? Because that would make sense that we start looking at what are the main things, what are the main hazards OSHA looking for? And I think that's what we'll do today. So today what we're going to do is, and I'm focusing on general industry, not construction, not maritime. This is general industry, 29 CFR 1910. Okay, so let's go over that. We'll talk top time things, and I'll break it down a little bit. Your top 2 or 3 things to look for as you're going through your workplace to address in those areas and in future weeks. And if you put in the comments that you want more description of this, a little better explanation. I've been doing this for about 18, 19 years now, so I've kind of got that practical application. What we're looking for, and I can start breaking that down down the road. If my dog's in the background stop attacking my wife, she must be trying to eat. So anyway, OSHA's top 10. The number one most commonly cited violation in OSHA's general industry workplace investigations is hazardous communications. You can find this if you look it up in 29 CFR 1910.1200. Hazardous communications is if you bring any kind of a hazard onto the site, you need to be able to communicate that. And we're really focused on chemicals here, chemical exposures, gases, stuff like this, when we're talking 29 CFR 1910.1200. So whenever you bring a chemical on site, you have to have an SDS or a safety data sheet with that. And you can go online and get these if you have a bunch of spray cans, spray paint, whatever it may be, oils. You can usually go onto the vendor's website, type it up, look it in, and they have the SDSs there. You can download it, have it available for your employees. Make sure you're keeping those steady. There's a lot of services out there now. If you're getting a little bigger, you can pay these services. There's really not that much. Where you say, I want this, and then you just go in and type, and what you need to do is work with your vendors that whenever they're sending you materials, you're picking stuff up, ask for that SDS, make sure you have a copy of it, review it, make it available to your employees so they know what hazards they're exposed, what are the safe measures, PPE, stuff like that. So you got to make sure you have current versions of safety data sheets on hand for everything that you have, any kind of a chemical, anything like that. Now you think about it, what does that qualify? It's pretty much everything, guys. If I have sandpaper, there's glue on that sandpaper, that's an exposure, right? So think about it that way. Anything you bring, you need to have an SDS, have it on hand. Unlabeled containers are another thing when we're falling under the HAZCOM standard. So what happens is, and this is the most common, you get it fresh from the vendor, fresh from the store, and it's got a label on it. You know, you got your Simple Green and it's got its label on the bottle. That's fine. That there is adequate information on there for employees to know what they're being exposed to, what are the safety measures. Now, let's say you get it in bulk and you want to transfer it into some smaller plastic bottles to use at different workstations, which most people do. You now have to have a label on that secondary containing saying what it is. And you can go in there and it kind of tells you got to have the main hazards, PPE, you can put in the NFPA diamond, like the health, the reactivity, the flammability scores for those things. We'll do a further breakdown of that, but that's another thing. Make sure, and even if you're just using a small bucket as a drip pan for oil, write used oil on it. It's got to be labeled so people know what's in those things. Okay, think about emergency situation. I find somebody passed out on the floor and I don't know what they were carrying with them at the time. If you have everything labeled, they know, hey, this might have been what caused it. for emergency services. So that's the main reason for that. And then you also have inadequate employee training. You're going to hear this one come up over and over. People are doing the stuff, but they're not training the employees. So it can be as simple as a quick toolbox topic most of the time. Just like, hey, we have this. If there's secondary chemicals that need labeling, make sure we're putting a sticker on it so everybody knows what's being handled. Training is going to come up a lot. Okay, so we're going to keep going through. So number one, HAZCOM. Number two, respiratory protection. I find this a lot. This is in 29 CFR 1910.134. You can go in there and kind of look it up. Some of these are convoluted, kind of hard to read, but make sure you have a written program for respiratory protection. If anybody's putting anything over their mouth, right, and this includes like an N95 face mask, right? Or you see the half mask with the two filters on the side. You can get it at Home Depot or Lowe's, and we're putting it on because we're working around strong stuff with strong fumes. Anytime we're putting anything over anybody's face, we have to start following by the respiratory standard if we require them to do so. Okay, so for the N95 dust mask, a lot of times people bring these in. It's considered a respirator, by the way, okay? Because it seals around and it can inhibit the way somebody breathes or restricts it in some manner, right? If you're just providing them and you're not requiring employees to wear it, at least have them find it. You can look it up in the standard in 134. OSHA's Appendix D, which is them signing off saying, I know I have to wear it a certain way. It only protects against certain hazards, and I am not being required to do this. I'm doing by my own voluntary choice. Have them sign that, keep it on file, you're good. Now, if you start requiring them, then you have to go through stuff. You have to do fit testing procedures. They have to have medical evaluations every year. And this can be simple. Find your physician, fill out a form. There's a questionnaire. Talk to your physician. They'll probably know about it. Or you can go online a lot of times and just find these for your state. It downloads. It's a bunch of questions they fill out. You know, I haven't been sick in a year, whatever like that. Do I have asthma? Stuff like that. They go in, the medical person evaluates it and says either they're okay to wear what you're giving them, or I need them to come in and I need to do pulmonary function testing to verify that it's safe for them to wear it. So that's another one. Make sure we're doing that. And then the last one in there is improper respirators. I'm giving them dust masks when they really need a full face mask, fully sealed, that kind of a thing, right? So make sure we're getting the right things. That's number two. Number three, Lockout, tagout, or OSHA's 29 CFR 1910.147. Pretty much anybody who's in safety can rattle off that number to you because it's one of the big hitters, and they will come in every time and they'll always ask for you for your program. So one, do you have procedures for everything? And I think the way it's worded in there, if there's only one source of energy to that, you don't have to have a written procedure. It's very clear. If it's just I plug it into the wall and it runs, if I unplug it, nothing can possibly move. It's just dead. There's a dead stick, right? Once you get beyond that, you have to have lockout, tagout procedures written, right, with the different steps and the different parts of identification. And one of the big ones is there's missing device IDs. You don't call out in that procedure that you have to turn this valve, you have to push this button, I have to pull the key, I have to close this slide, anything like that, right? It's got to call out everything you need to lock out so that thing's completely isolated from hazardous energy. That'll be found in there again. More to come on a future op. And then inadequate training again sneaks into it. Are we properly training our employees? And if not, we need to fix that and start doing some basic trainings. And you can find basic trainings online. And I'm going to start developing some so you guys can come here and hopefully, if you like my stuff, you can use these. So that's where we're going there. Number four, powered industrial trucks. 29 CFR 1910.178. People are driving forklifts, cherry pickers, tuggers, stuff like that, and they just don't have training. You just say, hey, here's how you go. OSHA, it spells it out very clearly. 1910.178, and I think it's subpart L. Paren L, if you go in there, and it spells out exactly what type of training you need to do and how frequently. It's very easy when you go in there, and it's really clear. It's one of the few things that OSHA really spells out very, very clearly. This is the training they need. So make sure they're doing that, and then just observed unsafe operation. Are you driving in and out of the back of a semi, and there's no wheel chocks, and the truck's running, and there's no brakes at anywhere, and that thing could pull away from the dock, right? Is that something that you're accounting for? So unsafe operation is another one, and it's very easy. Just OSHA inspector happened to be driving by on the highway. One of your guys is out on a forklift and they're doing something completely unsafe, which you have to stay on top of your forklift operators because they will do it because they'll find a way to get something done, even if it's not safe. So you need to be out there watching them and make sure they're doing it. And then the other thing is lack of inspection. So OSHA calls out that every time you're going to use a powered industrial truck, at least for that shift, there has to be a pre-shift inspection done on that. Are you inspecting that thing to make sure it is safe to use? And there's a checklist of things, and you can usually go to the forklift manufacturer and say, what is the pre-shift check I need? They'll shoot you a copy of it, post it, put it on that forklift, put it right by where it's parked every day, wherever you store it, and make sure that they are doing that pre-use inspection every day to make sure that thing is safe to use. They get people on that a lot, and it's very common. Drivers they don't want to do it. The forklift operators, they don't want to do those inspections for whatever reason. They think it slows them down. And at the end of the day, it could save a life. So that's very important. So what's number 6? So I'm going to run number 6 and number 7 together. Number 6 and number 7 are based on electrical. There's 2 separate. Number 6 is 29 CFR 1910.303, and number 7 is 29 CFR 1910.305. I keep looking over because I wrote them down. I want to make sure I'm getting this right for you guys, so you can look it up and take a quick glance to make sure you're getting your programs right? So 1910.303 is more about exposed wiring, right? So do I have wiring that is exposed that somebody could accidentally come into contact with it and get an electrical shock? So that's number 1. Is your stuff properly grounded? Everything has to be grounded. If it's not grounded and I touch it and it's got bad wiring, I can now become the easiest path, the path of least resistance for electricity to get to the ground, which is where it's always going, right? So we want to be sure, walk around, take a look at all your electrical cords. Are there chips, nicks out of it, just completely cut open? Are there copper wires sticking out at the end where the plug is to my equipment? Right? Go around and look. It's pretty easy to spot. And if you got an electrician, or just replace the cords, just cut them and replace them. They're not that expensive. And then the other one on that one is missing covers on junction boxes. So you got your light switch or whatever like that, and the cover's just completely gone, and you can see the wirings inside. It's just a full-fledged exposure that you don't even have to work. Somebody could trip and put their hand right into it, get an electrical shock. That's bad. And then that runs right into the number 7, or the 305, 1910.305. What we're talking about is open knockouts. Now on those junction boxes, if you look on the junction boxes, you got the face and the cover. Look around the outside, you got where the conduit runs into that junction box, and all around those boxes, there's little knockouts, little round circles. There's usually metal in it, but that's designed so they can run that conduit in there whichever direction they need to. It's for ease of the electrician, and it's good because you don't have to have all these funky things running around. It can just run in whatever direction straight in. However, those knockouts are designed to be knocked out, so over time they get knocked out pretty easily. And if you have one of those open and somebody could stick their finger or a tool into that and be exposed to live electrical, now you have another issue. I wish they were in the same standard, but it's just a little different. There's a little higher exposure on the 303 versus the 305. So anyway, do that. Flexible cords used as, so in other words, am I using an extension cord as permanent wiring? Because I can't do that. If it's designed to be permanently wired in, I have to do that. Now, you can do it for a short amount of time, right? I just need this for a day. I'm running a piece of equipment. I'm not going to run an electrical box and conduit all the way over there. Obviously, that's fine. It's once you start using that as permanent, and I'll have to dig into that if they've actually come out and said how long is permanent versus temporary, because I have a construction project going on for 1 or 2 weeks, and I'm going to use this extension cord to keep the power tools running that I need to get this done. Well, that's temporary. Well, what about 90 days down the road? Is it still temporary, or have you just been using that temporary label as a way around putting something safe in because it costs you a few bucks more? That's kind of what they're looking for there. So you cannot use an extension cord as permanent wiring. And then you also have, are you plugging an extension cord into another extension cord? You got a whole slur of things, right? Because extension cords are rated for their thickness, the size of the wire, and their length. And so now you can't start running or daisy chaining one extension cord into another extension cord. And one thing most people forget is that these power strips, right? The power strips that we plug into so you can turn 2 outlets into 6, you cannot run extension cords into those. You have to run the piece of equipment directly into that power strip. Any more than that, and that's daisy chaining. More to come on that down the road. So, and then the other thing is make sure your conduit's good and not damaged, possibly pinching wires, things like that. Let's look at number 8. What's number 8? Exit routes and emergency planning. That's found in 29 CFR 1910.37. Go into there, and one of the biggest ones, and this will just keep creeping up on you day after day, you have to stay on top of your team, is they're blocking emergency exits. Okay, it goes all the way back to, if we start talking about Triangle Shirtwaist Company, where all those women and girls died and the exits were blocked because they didn't want to have excessive breaks being taken and stuff like that. You cannot block emergency exits. And one of the easiest ways, sometimes you can get people to stop doing that, and you still have to stay on top of them, paint that exit route or put tape down, do something to designate that route and say, excuse me, you cannot block that, because in case of an emergency, they need to quickly be able to get to those routes and not be blocked and tripping over things. We've heard how many tragedies of people start piling up because somebody tripped, and all of a sudden a pile up of human bodies as they're trying to get out, crawl over each other in a panic, and it goes bad. So make sure your emergency exits are clear and not stuff sitting in front of them. You have to almost be a Nazi about this when you're implementing it, to stay on top of your team and make sure they're not doing it. It's too dumb of a violation to let sneak up on you guys. There's inadequate signage. It's a maze. I have no clue where I got to go to get out of here, right? Make sure there's some signs up, some clear postings. You train your individuals. You have emergency lightings by exit, stuff like that. Make sure it's clearly marked where you go out. Emergency light over a door with a red exit, right? This is how you get out of here, and train your employees to it. Post a couple maps around your facility so people can look and say, where do I go in the event of an emergency? Every hotel room you ever go into has it clearly posted. That's all you need to do, and you're good to go, right? For the most part. Then finally, poor lighting. If your plant is really dark and dim, start working on getting better lighting, and maybe there's a million ways you can address that. But if it's really dark and dim, you're going to have to start adding some lights. Figure out some way to get a light so people aren't tripping over stuff trying to get in and out in the event of an emergency. Number 9, let's go on. Okay, so we got fall protection, and we're talking about floor and wall, open holes and floors and open walls. So this one is, and I gotta go over here because I kind of got away from myself for a second, 29 CFR 1910.23. And so this is the 20s. I think it's like 20 through 25 is all going to be about ladders and fall hazard and stuff like that. So go into that subpart, start digging around. But a lot of stuff, and some of the biggest ones here, and the first one that they listed when I was researching it was missing guardrails. So if you got a big open hole around a floor, and so the fall protection standard in general industry kicks in at 4 feet. So if the surface that you're working on is more than 4 feet off of the floor, you now get pulled into the fall protection standard within OSHA, at least for general industry. In construction, I believe it is 6 feet is where they worry about it, because they're building the thing, so they're in the process of putting it on. It's probably a part of the reason why. But in general industry, you're an established workplace, you got to have this up. So 4 feet off the floor. So if I have a mezzanine area or a raised up work surface where I have people working on a piece of equipment, and that from the floor to that work surface is 4 feet or more, I need to have protected guard railing around it so people aren't falling. And there's a bunch of specifics in there. Again, another episode for another day to get into that. But make sure we're doing that. The second thing they note in there that they're finding is unsafe ladders. Are your ladders damaged? And if you go into 1910.23, it gives you very specific. If you got a fixed ladder, right, it's got to have so much space. I think it might be 7 inches from the wall to where that rung is. So you don't want the rung right up against the wall, because then you're just trying to tiptoe your way up a ladder, right? And so they really spell it out. How wide do you have to be? How far can you go before you have to have the cage around the ladder, which I think is 20 feet. I think that's 20 feet, maybe 22. I'd have to go back and look at that specific. More to come on that in another episode. But make sure we're doing that. And then finally, unprotected elevated surfaces. Again, just any unprotected elevated surface. Here's another one. If you happen to have skylights on your roof, people go up onto that roof. If they're going up there just for general maintenance, whatever, once they get up there, they are potentially exposed to falling through that skylight. You got to make sure there's a protective guardrail or something, or a cage over that, so people don't accidentally trip and fall through, because that has tragically happened more often than not, to the point where they have it in the code. So make sure we're taking care of that stuff too. And then finally, folks, let's get to number 10, noise exposure in the workplace. And I can't emphasize this enough. People will just ignore noise. Without naming the place, Back in the 80s when I'm in high school, I got a job in a factory over the summer, and I worked there. I worked on farms. I did a lot of stuff around a lot of noise. But I particularly remember that summer working behind a lot of really loud equipment in an industrial setting. And my hearing was just never really the same afterwards. I remember going home some days, my ears were ringing. Now, not to point fingers at anybody, because everybody did it, and I don't think there was much of an awareness around OSHA rules at the time. It was so new at the time, right? But I go back now, and I have bad hearing, and it could have been a mix of a million things, right? So I was a dumb kid, played loud music and all this kind of stuff like everybody does. But my hearing's crap, and I really go back. I remember at the time the ringing in my ears back then, and then I was one of these guys. I was one of these dummies guys that was out there, and I just pushed back. It was just, oh, only wussies got to wear that. I don't need that. Well, that's not the case, guys. Wear hearing protection. Save your hearing. So this can be found in 29 CFR 1910.95, and the number one cited thing in there is the lack of a hearing conservation program. Go into this and look. Now you can pull up and you can get this free app on your phone. It's NIOSH, NIOSH, National Institute of Occupational Safety and Health. And they have a hearing, a noise meter on there that you can just download onto your phone. And I was talking to an OSHA inspector one time about it. And they said, hey, I use this generally without going and getting the expensive equipment. Now you have to have that in. But if you're just kind of wondering what's the general, it's going to get you very close to what your noise levels are in real time. You can look at it and then you can push a button. It'll tell you what would this average out to over 8 hours. OSHA says you have to have a hearing conservation program if you're over 85 decibels in the A scale over an 8-hour time-weighted average. I'm pretty sure I got that right. I could have worded it funny, but that's the essential ruling of it, right? So download that NIOSH app, the noise meter, and go out on your shop floor at a regular work time. Don't go out when there's nobody working and no equipment's running. Go out there at the worst time of day. Hold this up and it'll kind of show you what your decibel levels are normally. Like an office setting is usually somewhere in the 70s, okay, mid 70s, say mid to low 70s, depending on how many people, how much noise. And that'll tell you, once you hit that 85, now you got to start worrying about having an occupational noise conservation program or hearing conservation program, and it'll help you spell it out. And you can reach out to industrial hygienists and get somebody in there, and they'll come and do a study. It's relatively cheap, and it can save you thousands, if not tens or hundreds of thousands long term, depending on the size of your company. And one person, including yourself, losing your hearing or going deaf and not being able to fight it, guys, I'm relatively young, 55 years old. My 85-year-old father lived with us for years, and I'm the one with bad hearing. And it's frustrating having to have people repeat stuff to you all the time. I am the safety manager at where I work, and I'm constantly having to have people repeat stuff because my hearing is bad because I refuse to follow the rules back in the day. So don't be that guy, right? I wish I could hear everything is clear. I can't watch TV with any background noise on it without really struggling to hear what's said. And I'm a sports fan, and so it's hard for me to watch games and not be able to understand everything. It's frustrating. Anyway, lack of hearing conservation program. The next one is missing audiometric testing. So once you're over that 85 decibels and you have to have a hearing conservation program, you have to test your people annually. Have a baseline run annually, have them tested to make sure you're catching it. If they're starting to lose their hearing earlier than should, because there's a normal rate at which people normally go deaf over time, and if there's something that triggers that, it goes in, and these guys come in there and they know, like, hey, are you a hunter, are you this? It's not all going to be put on you, right? It's going to say, is this normal or is it out of normal? Because people all go deaf over time for the most part, right? So have that audiometric testing done, and you can go to any industrial hygienist, any occupational workplace, occupational health center. They can help guide you on this, and it's not as overwhelming as it seems. You just have to keep up with it, and a lot of times they're more than willing for a price to help you keep up with it. And then finally, no hearing protection. If you're running any equipment at all, whether it be saws, presses, stamping machine, power and industrial trucks, working around augers, anything like that, even if it doesn't pull you over 85, hearing protection is cheap. Get some hearing protection, put it out there, make it available for your workforce, and encourage them to wear it. You will thank yourself later for it. So anyway, folks, those are the main things. If I'm sitting there looking at what am I going to go through my plant and start designing a safety program to make sure if OSHA shows up tomorrow, I at least have idea of what they're looking for, I would go through it. Let's run over the top 10 real quick and then I'll get out of here for the day, right? Number 1, hazardous communications, 1910.1200, 29 CFR 1910.1200, hazardous communications, OSHA's #1 cited thing and one of the easiest things to stay in front of. Number 2, respiratory for protection. That's found in 1910.134, 1910.134. Lockout, tagout, or control of hazardous energy, 29 CFR 1910.147, 147. Number 4, powered industrial trucks, 29 CFR 1910.178, 178. 5, machine guarding, 1910.212. 6 and 7 are electrical, 1910.303 and 1910.305. Take a look, you'll thank me later. Exit routes and emergency planning, 1910.37, 1910.37. Take a look at it. Fall protection, 1910.23. Fall protection and ladders, look at it. You probably have ladders, even if it's just a short step ladder. 1910.23 really spells it out crisply in there for you. And then finally, occupational noise exposure, 1910.95. So those are your top 10, folks. If you're trying to wrap your head around a program, it's a ton of work. It's a lot of work. If you have questions about specifics, drop it in the comments. I follow my comments. I will do my best to give you a good answer. I'll even do a special on it sometime in the next few days if I get a chance to help you out. But let's go through this. Let's keep our workforce safe. Let's stay ahead of it. Make OSHA's job easy so they don't even have to go out and do any inspections anymore. All they got to do is sit back and make sure everybody's following the rules. We can do this. We can get a safe workforce that doesn't cost us any money either, right, guys? Okay, this is Papa Todd. Papa Todd Takes. This is my toolbox for the week. Stay safe out there, folks. Let's have a good one.